Trauma Center series is the king of all things that have to do with medical practice for video games. There are a couple copycats, but nothing comes close to what has been achieved here. Now it looks like they have upped the ante with Trauma Team, the first in the series that allows you to play multiple roles in the doctor field. Yet has Atlas made enough changes to the tried and true formula to make this more than a repackaged expansion. In Trauma Team, there are a variety of people to play as, so that means you get a different storyline point of view from each one. There isn't really a main character here that I can see, the first character being simply named CRS-01, who is a surgeon so dangerous he has to have his face covered like the man in the Iron Mask.
You want me to operate?
The buxom and wild Maria Torres, who serves as the game's emergency response technician. She is a very harsh woman to deal with, and she apparently has the ability to see ghosts.
I was called here because you obviously couldn't handle...
Hey, are you spacing out?
Next on the list is Hank Freebird, who on top of being an amazing orthopedic surgeon, moonlights as a superhero named Captain Eagle. Fourth on the list is Tomoe Tachibana. She's the endoscopy surgeon in the game. She has daddy issues after leaving Japan, but her personality quirk is all about being honorable.
You had an endoscope made just for you?
The path of honor demands that I use the best tools I can.
Then we have Gabriel Cunningham, the diagnostics expert in the hospital. He's been having issues with his wife and son, probably due to the fact that all he seems to care about is saving lives.
Unfortunately, I don't have time for pointless things. If conferences saved lives, I'd be the first one in line.
Finally, we have Naomi Kimishima. She's this game's forensics analyst. Naomi is Trauma Team's Horatio Kane, and if you don't know who that is, her role in this game is to basically be a crime scene investigator. She has a troubled past and can apparently hear people being murdered by listening to their cell phones.
Nice tie there, little guy. Be a good boy and stay.
Now, if all of that sounds a little weird, that's because this is an Atlas game, so pretty much everything you see here is charged with anime-fueled plot lines. If you look at anime and your stomach starts to bubble in disgust, you probably shouldn't even invest any time in Trauma Team. But for those of you that can tolerate a wacky Japanese-infused storyline, you're in for a pretty good treat here. The only problem I can see is having no Japanese voice track, but the English cast is passable in their roles and don't expect anything beyond that.
Hanzo!
So, pathology's making an antitoxin for the drugs, but... Sheesh. I wasn't done, you know!
Atlas has added a lot more variety this time, with only the surgery profession being even remotely the same. Now there are 6 different fields of medicine to practice, with each adding its own little twist. The first responder is exactly what it sounds like. You have to stabilize injured people and get them back to the hospital. It's the only portion of the game that makes you switch between multiple patients. You basically set bones, treat and bandage wounds, so the doctors can look at them later.
Okay, that should do it. All the wounded have been taken care of. Mission complete.
Orthopedics might be one of the most fun out of all the professions, with the player tracing wounds to remove tumors, setting and piecing together bones, to the screwing and pinning of those missing fragments back together. Don't let the first mission dissuade you from continuing down the path of orthopedics.
Rock solid.
But endoscopy could give it a run for its money. You direct a tube into the body of a patient by thrusting the Wii remote forward. You can use the nunchuck's analog stick to control the direction of the tube. There are various tools used with endoscopy, like forceps that the player can use to seal hemorrhaging areas and a syringe for injecting medicine into problem areas. It's also the only one that uses the C button to open the toolbar, and that can take a bit of getting used to. The fifth medical field is diagnostics. This is where you can channel your inner house. It's also one of the 2 very different areas of the game that don't have you digging inside of people's bodies. Diagnosing a patient starts off simple, with minor checkup procedures like asking a few questions.
Alright, I'm sorry, but I need to touch it just a little.
Oh, yes, please do so.
Or using your stethoscope to assess the symptoms. After that, you head into your office and match the symptoms to a series of diseases, before moving on to the examination room to start tests. This is where the CT scan, MRI, scintigraphy, and diagnostic tests come into play. The scans are fairly easy to manage, with the player only having to point out the problem area, while the diagnostic tests force you to think about the causes of the diseases and select the problematic values. When you finally finished all of this, you return to your office and link together a full diagnostic.
It's official. The patient is suffering from plumber's disease.
And finally we make it to the last medical field, forensics. This is where the power of investigation comes into play, and this quite possibly might be the most involving of all the fields. You'll do a fair amount of matching evidence, listening to witness accounts, searching bodies and items for clues, sending evidence off to be analyzed, and investigating a crime scene. Not to mention that when you discover something new, you'll be quizzed on how it relates to the case. So you'll be using a good amount of your logistics skills to solve these murder cases.
That's right. There's only the one wound on the wrist.
The thing that makes Trauma Team all the more inviting is the sound. It seems like Atlas is always trying to make interesting music in their games, and this one is no exception to the fact. It's a mixture of music that doesn't really ever hurt your ears to listen to. The only thing that keeps this game down is the lack of animations. The cutscenes consist of still frames zooming in and out when necessary, and the graphics during gameplay won't win any accolades. But if you played the Trauma Center games before, you know they work just fine.
Please continue on.
I will gladly say that this game gets a B- for me, mostly because I'm a sucker for off-the-wall games like the Harvest Moon series, the Persona games, and everything Ace Attorney, and the inclusion of much more medical fields really blows the game past the Trauma Center games. This is one of those games where you can pick it up and put it down just as easily. The splitting of the chapters allows you to play portions of the game that you like, when you want, and how you want. So that is perfect for gamers of any type. So I recommend this game as a buy if you're into anime, investigations, and saving lives without getting blood on you.